to explain what a comma splice is and to teach you how to avoid this particular punctuation error. First of all, just as a definition, it's the use of a comma when a stronger punctuation mark or additional construction is needed. This construction contains a comma splice. Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed. I looked in all the shoes in the closet. And you can see that only a comma joins those two sections. Here's why it's a comma splice. We have two complete sentences here, known also as independent clauses. Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed. That's a perfectly acceptable simple sentence. And I looked in all the shoes in the closet, also ending with a period because it's also a completely acceptable sentence. Now, commas are useful for connecting words, phrases, and clauses, but they simply are not strong enough to connect something as weighty as sentences. So we see words can be connected. We ate apples, comma, oranges, comma, and pears. The same thing with phrases, and then the same thing with clauses. But when it comes to sentences, it's just not going to do the job. The comma needs something a little bit better. So, or we need something a little stronger than a comma. So rather than using a comma to join sentences, here are the options that you can use instead. You can use a semicolon. Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed. I looked in all the shoes in the closet. That's essentially the same thing we did incorrectly using the comma. We just replaced that comma with a semicolon. We can also use a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. We remember what these are by using the acronym FANBOYS. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so are the coordinating conjunctions. So we can take two independent clauses and combine them by means of a comma plus one of these coordinating conjunctions. And I've given you two examples here. Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed, comma, so I looked in all the shoes in the closet. Or Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed, comma, and I looked in all the shoes in the closet. This is also a punctuation rule you're going to want to remember. When you're using a coordinating conjunction to join two complete sentences, you have to also use a comma just before that conjunction. And the final way is that you can make one of those independent clauses a dependent clause. You should look at page 70 of your textbook to see a better explanation or more thorough explanation of this. But essentially what you're going to do is use a subordinating word like while to subordinate one of those clauses to the other. Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed while I looked in all the shoes in the closet. An interesting note is if you put the dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence, you will need a comma after it. While I looked in all the shoes in the closet, comma, Josh looked for the kitten under the covers of his bed, period. That's it for the comma splice. Review as often as you need to, and that's the end of this presentation.